Tales of a Wayside Inn by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. The Musician's Tale. Parts 7 to 12. Part 7. Ironbeard. Olaf the King one summer morn blew a blast on his bugle horn, sending his signal through the land of Drontheim. And to the husting held at Mere gathered the farmers far and near, with their war weapons ready to confront him. Ploughing under the morning star, old Ironbeard in Iriar heard the summons, chuckling with a low laugh. He wiped the sweat drops from his brow, unharnessed his horses from the plough, and clattering came on horseback to King Olaf. He was the churliest of the churls, little he cared for king or earls. Bitter as home-brewed ale were his foaming passions. Hodden grey was the garb he wore, and by the hammer of Thor he swore. He hated the narrow town and all its fashions. But he loved the freedom of his farm, his ale at night by the fireside warm, Gudrun his daughter with her flaxen tresses. He loved his horses and his herds, the smell of the earth and the song of birds, his well-filled barns, his brook with its watercresses. Huge and cumbersome was his frame, his beard, from which he took his name, frosty and fierce, like that of Hymer the giant. So at the husting he appeared, the farmer of Iriar, Ironbeard, on horseback with an attitude defiant, and to King Olaf he cried aloud, out of the middle of the crowd that tossed about him like a stormy ocean, "Such sacrifices shalt thou bring to Odin and to Thor, O King, as other kings have done in their devotion." King Olaf answered, "I command this land to be a Christian land. Here is my bishop, who the folk baptizes. But if you ask me to restore your sacrifices stained with gore, then will I offer human sacrifices. Not slaves and peasants shall they be, but men of note and high degree, such men as Orm of Lyra and Kar of Greiting." Then to their temple strode he in, and loud behind him heard the din of his men-at-arms and the peasants fiercely fighting. There in the temple, carved in wood, the image of great Odin stood, and other gods, with Thor supreme among them. King Olaf smote them with the blade of his huge war-axe, gold inlaid, and downward, shattered to the pavement, flung them. At the same moment rose without, from the contending crowd, a shout, a mingled sound of triumph and of wailing. And there upon the trampled plain the farmer Ironbeard lay slain, midway between the assailed and the assailing. King Olaf from the doorway spoke, "Choose ye between two things, my folk, to be baptized or given up to slaughter." And seeing their leader stark and dead, the people with a murmur said, "O King, baptize us with thy holy water." So all the Drontheim land became a Christian land in name and fame, in the old gods no more believing and trusting. And as a blood atonement soon King Olaf wed the fair Gudrun, and thus in peace ended the Drontheim husting. Part 8. Gudrun. On King Olaf's bridal night shines the moon with tender light, and across the chamber streams its tide of dreams. At the fatal midnight hour, when all evil things have power, in the glimmer of the moon stands Gudrun. Close against her heaving breast something in her hand is pressed, like an icicle its sheen is cold and keen. On the cairn are fixed her eyes, where her murdered father lies, and a voice remote and drear she seems to hear. What a bridal night is this! Cold will be the dagger's kiss, laden with the chill of death is its breath. Like the drifting snow she sweeps to the couch where Olaf sleeps. Suddenly he wakes and stirs, his eyes meet hers. "What is that," King Olaf said, "gleams so bright above thy head? Wherefore standest thou so white in pale moonlight?" 'Tis the bodkin that I wear when at night I bind my hair. It woke me falling on the floor. 'Tis nothing more. Forests have ears, and fields have eyes. Often treachery lurking lies underneath the fairest hair. Gudrun, beware! Ere the earliest peep of morn blew King Olaf's bugle horn, and forever sundered ride bridegroom and bride. Part 9. Thangbrand the Priest. Short of stature, large of limb, burly face and russet beard, all the women stared at him when in Iceland he appeared. "Look," they said with nodding head, "there goes Thangbrand, Olaf's priest." All the prayers he knew by rote, he could preach like Chrysostom, from the Fathers he could quote. He had even been at Rome, a learned clerk, a man of mark, was this Thangbrand, Olaf's priest. He was quarrelsome and loud, and impatient of control, boisterous in the market crowd, boisterous at the wassail bowl. Everywhere would drink and swear, swaggering Thangbrand, Olaf's priest. In his house this malcontent could the king no longer bear, so to Iceland he was sent to convert the heathen there. And away one summer day sailed this Thangbrand, Olaf's priest. There in Iceland o'er their books pored the people day and night, but he did not like their looks, nor the songs they used to write. "All this rhyme is waste of time," grumbled Thangbrand, Olaf's priest. To the ale-house where he sat came the Scalds and Saga men. Is it to be wondered at that they quarrelled now and then, when o'er his beer began to leer drunken Thangbrand, Olaf's priest? All the folk in Altafiord boasted of their island grand, saying in a single word, "Iceland is the finest land that the sun doth shine upon." Loud laughed Thangbrand, Olaf's priest, and he answered, "What's the use of this bragging up and down, when 3 women and 1 goose make a market in your town?" Every Scald satires scrawled on poor Thangbrand, Olaf's priest. Something worse they did than that, and what vexed him most of all was a figure in shovel hat drawn in charcoal on the wall, with words that go sprawling below, "This is Thangbrand, Olaf's priest." Hardly knowing what he did, then he smote them might and main. Thorvald Vile and Vetelid lay there in the alehouse slain. "To-day we are gold, to-morrow mould," muttered Thangbrand, Olaf's priest. Much in fear of axe and rope, back to Norway sailed he then. "O King Olaf, little hope is there of these Iceland men," meekly said, with bending head, pious Thangbrand, Olaf's priest. Section 10. Raud the Strong. All the old gods are dead, all the wild warlocks fled, but the white Christ lives and reigns, and throughout my wild domains his gospel shall be spread. On the evangelists thus swore King Olaf, but still in dreams of the night beheld he the crimson light, and heard the voice that defied him who was crucified, and challenged him to the fight. To Sigurd the bishop King Olaf confessed it, and Sigurd the bishop said, "The old gods are not dead, for the great Thor still reigns, and among the jarls and thanes the old witchcraft still is spread." Thus to King Olaf said Sigurd the bishop, "Far north in the Salten Fjord, by rapine, fire, and sword, lives the Viking Raud the Strong. All the Goddo Isles belong to him and his heathen horde." Thus went on speaking Sigurd the bishop. "A warlock, a wizard is he, and lord of the wind and the sea, and whichever way he sails he has ever favouring gales, by his craft in sorcery." Here the sign of the cross made devoutly King Olaf. "With rites that we both abhor he worships Odin and Thor, so it cannot yet be said that all the old gods are dead and the warlocks are no more. Flushing with anger, said Sigurd the bishop. Then King Olaf cried aloud, I will talk with this mighty Raud, and along the Salten Fjord preach the gospel with my sword, or be brought back in my shroud. So northward from Drontheim sailed King Olaf. Part 11. Bishop Sigurd at Salten Fjord. Loud the angry wind was wailing as King Olaf's ships came sailing northward out of Drontheim haven to the mouth of Salten Fjord. Though the flying sea spray drenches fore and aft the rowers' benches, not a single heart is craven of the champions there on board. All without the fjord was quiet, but within it storm and riot, such as on his Viking cruises Raud the Strong was wont to ride. And the sea through all its tideways swept the reeling vessels sideways, as the leaves are swept through sluices when the floodgates open wide. "'Tis the warlock, 'tis the demon Raud!" cried Sigurd to the seamen. "But the Lord is not affrighted by the witchcraft of his foes." To the ship's bow he ascended, by his choristers attended. Round him were the tapers lighted, and the sacred incense rose. On the bow stood Bishop Sigurd, in his robes as one transfigured, and the crucifix he planted high amid the rain and mist. Then with holy water sprinkled all the ship, the mass bells tinkled, loud the monks around him chanted, loud he read the Evangelist. As into the fjord they darted, on each side the water parted, down a path like silver molten steadily rode King Olaf's ships. Steadily burned all night the tapers, and the white Christ through the vapors gleamed across the fjord of Salten, as through John's apocalypse, till at last they reached Raud's dwelling on the little isle of Gelling. Not a guard was at the doorway, not a glimmer of light was seen. But at anchor, carved and gilded, lay the dragon ship he builded. 'Twas the grandest ship in Norway, with its crest and scales of green. Up the stairway, softly creeping, to the loft where Raud was sleeping, with their fists they burst asunder bolt and bar that held the door. Drunken with sleep and ale they found him, dragged him from his bed and bound him, while he stared with stupid wonder at the look and garb they wore. Then King Olaf said, "O Sea King, little time have we for speaking. Choose between the good and evil. Be baptized, or thou shalt die." But in scorn the heathen scoffer answered, "I disdain thine offer. Neither fear I God nor devil. Thee and thy gospel I defy." Then between his jaws distended, when his frantic struggles ended, through King Olaf's horn an adder touched by fire they forced to glide. Sharp his tooth was as an arrow, as he gnawed through bone and marrow, but without a groan or shudder Raud the Strong blaspheming died. Then baptized they all that region, swarthy Lapp and fair Norwegian, far as swims the salmon leaping up the streams of Salten Fjord. In their temples Thor and Odin lay in dust and ashes trodden, as King Olaf onward sweeping preached the gospel with his sword. Then he took the carved and gilded dragon ship that Raud had builded, and the tiller single-handed grasping steered into the main. Southward sailed the sea-gulls o'er him, southward sailed the ship that bore him, till at Drontheim haven landed Olaf and his crew again. Part 12. King Olaf's Christmas. At Drontheim Olaf the King heard the bells of Yuletide ring as he sat in his banquet hall, drinking the nut-brown ale with his bearded berserks hale and tall. 3 days his Yuletide feasts he held with bishops and priests, and his horn filled up to the brim, but the ale was never too strong, nor the Saga-man's tale too long for him. O'er his drinking horn the sign he made of the cross divine, as he drank and muttered his prayers, but the berserks evermore made the sign of the hammer of Thor over theirs. The gleams of the firelight dance upon helmet and hauberk and lance, and laugh in the eyes of the King. And he cries to Halfred the Scald, grey-bearded, wrinkled, and bald, "Sing! Sing me a song divine, with a sword in every line, and this shall be thy reward." And he loosened the belt at his waist, and in front of the singer placed his sword, Quernbiter of Hakon the Good, wherewith at a stroke he hewed the millstone through and through, and foot-breadth of Thoralf the Strong were neither so broad nor so long nor so true. Then the Scald took his harp and sang, and loud through the music rang the sound of that shining word, and the harp strings a clangour made, as if they were struck with the blade of a sword. And the berserks round about broke forth into a shout that made the rafters ring. They smote with their fists on the board, and shouted, "Long live the sword and the King!" But the King said, "O my son, I miss the bright word in one of thy measures and thy rhymes." And Hallfred the Scald replied, "In another 'twas multiplied 3 times." Then King Olaf raised the hilt of iron, cross-shaped and gilt, and said, "Do not refuse. Count well the gain and the loss. Thor's hammer or Christ's cross, choose." And Halfred the Scald said, "This in the name of the Lord I kiss, who on it was crucified." And a shout went round the board, "In the name of Christ the Lord, who died." Then over the waste of snows the noonday sun uprose, through the driving mists revealed, like the lifting of the host by incense clouds almost concealed. On the shining wall a vast and shadowy cross was cast from the hilt of the lifted sword, and in foaming cups of ale the berserks cried, "Wassail to the Lord,